And let's bring in now the man who led the way for the coalition on this, National Senator M.Canavan and former Liberal Senator Holly Hughes. Great to see you both. So, Matt, you led this campaign. You were the first in the coalition, first in the Nationals to come out so strongly. And it's funny because you always say that you can be more effective on the backbench. Well, you've shown that to be true. How do you feel tonight?
Look, I feel like the Australian people might finally get a break. So that's what I'm happy about. Before I get to that, I do want to say, Sharri, I think you're the nation's most fearless journalist. I've been on the receiving end of your fearlessness, and sometimes we disagree too. But it's a great thing, and I think it's very sad that people are seeking to litigate disputes through courts rather than respectful debate. So you handle that very well.
Thank you, Matt. I appreciate this.
Look, as I say, I've been at this fight for 4 years now because I was convinced that net zero would only do one thing, or maybe two things. It would make most Australians poorer, and it would enrich a small, self-entitled group of already rich people, primarily, who make a lot of money out of advising, out of consulting, out of investing in climate-related programs. Now, I believe what I predicted 4 years ago has come true. Since we signed up to net zero, we've had a 40% increase in energy prices. We've seen 7,000 manufacturing jobs go offshore. We've lost entire industries. And yes, this coterie of climate change hangers-on are doing very, very well, but the rest of the country is being left behind. So I think it's about time we stop trying to obsess over cutting emissions and instead cut the Australian people a break. And I welcome the decision today. I think Susan was excellent in the press conference. We've already had some initial discussions with my Liberal colleagues, and I think our relationship will be stronger after this. It'll be better. We're going to take up the fight, and that will give us a fighting chance.
Holly, what did you think of the outcome today? And while you were in the centre-right faction, you do have friends across the political spectrum. How are some of the moderates feeling about this?
Well, look, I haven't spoken to them, and I must say, Matt, you are one of the few, and you know this, one of the few people I actually miss working with. I absolutely adored working with Matt.
I miss you too, Holly.
It's a love-in tonight. This is great.
I'm looking forward to going to your pub. Yeah.
Likewise.
Absolutely. When you just started your sentence with, I feel like, I thought you were going to say a two-is, and I can help with that. But look, Matt and I worked on a lot of issues together, everything from the ridiculousness around the vaping laws. We've worked together on Transmission Tuesday, which was the speeches we used to make every Tuesday on the Senate about the obscene cost that was coming down the pipeline for the Australian people with this ridiculous rewiring of the nation. Matt has been extraordinary in the way that he has absolutely argued for this, and always argued for it in a very intelligent way without the hysterics that unfortunately some of his colleagues are too busy chasing a headline rather than putting policy substance behind it. I agree with Matt. I think Susan's press conference was very, very good. She needs a good team behind her out there selling this message. Personally, you talk about the Teal seat. I used to look after the Hunter region. Obviously, Ross Cadell is up there with the Nats now. But if you look at those seats, and Dan Rapopoli, the current Labor member for Hunter, has already sort of come out saying, well, I'd kind of welcome new coal-fired power stations. We should be looking at heli coal-fire. We should be looking at what we need to do to secure the future of energy, affordable energy for all Australians in this country. And, I'm back living in the bush. I've probably spent 50% of my life overall in the bush. And let me tell you, these renewable projects are destroying communities. And in New South Wales, there's no legislation about how close they can get to people's houses. So we're looking at wind turbines being put around 300 metres from people's houses. It is disgusting. It is disgraceful. And I hope now the naysayers against Susan can see how she's actually brought a party that was pretty divided on this topic really quite together. Those that were participating in performative art perhaps they might calm the farm a little bit.
I think her leadership is another question. But, Matt, I want to stick on net zero. You've tweeted some figures from the International Energy Agency, which basically say that despite countries' stated policies on cutting emission, the demand for oil continues to grow. Maybe we can show that graph. But clearly there is still this reliance on fossil fuels.
Look, there's a major report out today. It's an annual report from the International Energy Agency. And what they've done here is actually estimate what is happening rather than what just countries say is going to happen. And I always think it's best to judge people on what they do, not what they say. And what is actually happening, as the IEA have outlined today, is that oil and gas demand continues to grow massively. They're saying that it will continue to be growing in 2050. It's not even going to peak before 2050. And so the idea we'll get to net zero is just dead in the water based on these figures. The other aspect is even coal. Coal is expected to peak at the end of this decade, but the world will still be using just under 5 billion tonnes of coal a year in 2050. We produce about 450 million tonnes. So, look, what the rest of the world is focused on is on their development, on making sure that the 700 million people who don't have access to electricity get access to a light bulb, and that's what's driving this growth. And so we can sit back here and punish our own industry, punish our own economy, punish Australian families, or we can make sensible decisions that, yes, still look to reduce our emissions, but don't do so in a way that bankrupts our country.
Just quickly, Holly raised the point, and I've been speaking about it all week, about how you're going to sell this when you're up against such a massive scare campaign that will be coming from the government, the Teals, the Greens, the renewable industry lobby. How do you do that?
Well, I think Australians love an underdog. There's no doubt we're underdogs, right? There's no doubt we've taken on a massive endeavour. This is the political equivalent of hiking Mount Everest. Yes, we're facing opposition from big unions, big academia, big business, most of the media. They're all going to come at us, right? But I have faith because we're on the side of the Australian people. Like the Prime Minister today,
unions might help you out.
Big unions as well. Well, some of the unions, they probably won't say anything, Holly. They're probably quietly behind the scenes. But that's the Prime Minister today. His main argument against dropping net zero was because some countries would be upset with us if we did. Now, call me old-fashioned, but I think we should decide our policies in this country based on how good they are for the Australian people, not based on what people overseas think about us. Like, I'd like them to like us. I want to try and be a good person, a good guy, a good nation. But ultimately, our Prime Minister should be making decisions on what is best for the Australian people. And it's clear right now that net zero is not good for the Australian people because we're losing our jobs, we're losing our wealth, we're losing our confidence. I think we're losing our pride as a country because we just can't seem to get anything right anymore.
Paul Kelly on the show last week suggested that you would be the best person to front such a campaign, and listening to you speak tonight, I think that's spot on. I think he's 100% right. You carry the message. You liken it to perhaps climbing Mount Everest, not to mention the fact that a lot of people die before they make it to the top.
That's right. Who knows? I'm in this. I'm in this because I want to make a difference for people, and I get very frustrated at the constant conversation about how we're going to win seats and all that. Look, we will win the most seats if we have the best policies for the Australian people, and we argue for that. And the rest will take care of itself.
Before we go, let's turn to the bombshell Epstein documents that were released today. Now, this was by the Democrats. They released a series of emails. In one of them, Trump said that he did ask Epstein to resign as a member of Mar-a-Lago, and it claims that he knew about the girls and he asked Ghislaine to stop. So this is referring to Trump asking Epstein to resign from Mar-a-Lago. Then in another email, Epstein allegedly wrote of an unnamed victim that he spent hours at Epstein's house with this victim. Now, the New York Post reports that victim is Virginia Giuffre, who has said before her death that she witnessed no wrongdoing from Trump. Now, Holly, I want to get your view on this because clearly the media has focused on Trump, even though there was also correspondence about former President Bill Clinton and also the journalist Michael Wolff. But is this part of a partisan attack, or do you think the White House is coming under pressure here?
I don't think the White House is coming under any pressure whatsoever when it comes to this. And Virginia Giuffre's book actually spells out very, very clearly that she never, ever witnessed anything that Trump did that was inappropriate or in any way involved in it. I've actually been listening to a podcast in my many drives up and down between Sydney and the pub it was actually leading up to the Ghislaine Maxwell trial was this time. And it really did shine a light on how dishonest Epstein was, how manipulative Epstein was, and how he used his relationships with different people to sell different messages at different times. And to be honest though, I think if there was any substance to this, if there was any basis to this, the Democrats had this when Biden was in office. If there was anything there they could have significantly dropped, they would have done it post-primaries before the general election. This is absolutely clutching at straws. They've just been humiliated with the shutdown and how Trump's managed to get on top of that. And they know that Trump has had significant international victories. So I don't think the White House is worried about it. I think Caroline Leavitt's been doing a sensational job. And I think if the Democrats actually had anything, they'd have dumped it earlier. And if you listen to some of these podcasts and some of these documentaries running around it, I'd be more nervous as a Democrat and what some of their former luminaries have to be worried about.
Yeah, all right. Well, yeah, in your drive up to the pub, 2 hours or so, I'm sure you'll be listening to a lot more podcasts.
2 hours to the pub.
Can't believe you're not listening to the ABC, Holly.
Nah, I don't want road rage incidents, okay? I mean, I feel like we've almost made you blush tonight, Dom.
All right. Holly Hughes, great to see you, Matt, and such a treat to have you here in Sydney as well.
Yes, great.
Thank you so much. All right, well, for more on today's decision on net zero, let's bring in LNP MP Garth Hamilton. Garth,